spoiler warning for Better Call Saul up to Season 2, Episode 4. If you haven't seen up to this episode, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So jumping right into the first thing I need to get off my chest is fuck Chuck. God damn, Chuck is such an asshole. I mean, I kind of hated him before, but I totally hate him now. Anyway, talking about the episode overall, it seems like we got just as much Mike in this episode as we did Jimmy, if not more so, and that's fine. But I kind of wanted to check in with Jimmy a bit more. So anyway, the episode starts with the teaser of Mike looking like he got the ever-loving shit beat out of him, and he has a whole lot of money. But later we found out that this was a flash forward to the future. So last we saw Mike, he was offered a job by Nacho, and as the episode goes on, we find out that he wants him to kill Tuco. So at this stage we know two things. One, we know it ends with Mike getting the money and having the ever-loving shit beat out of him. And two, Mike does not kill Tuco because Tuco is still alive in Breaking Bad. So it was very interesting to guess what the hell would happen in this scenario. So last week I specifically guessed that Nacho would not hire Mike to kill someone, that it was probably more to dig up dirt. And my reasoning was that Nacho has goons, so if he wanted someone killed he could just use one of them to do it. But of course I wasn't thinking that the target would be Tuco, because obviously he can't use his goons for that. So, it makes sense why Nacho would want Tuco dead, since he's running a business on the side and is basically betraying him, and it's been well established how crazy Tuco is, as we saw him kill one of his own men in Breaking Bad just for the hell of it. And indeed, in this episode, Nacho tells another story about how Tuco went crazy and shot someone's head off. So he states that it's real simple for him. It's a him or me situation. So Mike seemed all on board with it and came up with this plan to use a sniper rifle. It did make me wonder why he would be okay with killing someone, but not with working for a loan shark. Maybe it's all the money. And then he meets with someone to buy a sniper rifle, but then changes his mind and instead comes up with a different plan to make Tuco go away without killing him. And it was so cool to see this play out. Mike was pretty much, awesome at pretending to be a helpless old man, but he was totally playing him. Almost felt like Mike was acting like Slipping Jimmy here, as he was pulling off a total con job. I wonder if Tuco ever realized that the whole thing was a setup. I don't know. The guy's pretty dense. So later, Nacho confronts Mike on why he went through all the trouble to not kill Tuco, when it would have been much easier and he would have made much more money if they just killed him. But Mike doesn't answer. So as I said last week, though, we know that Mike kills people by the time we get to Breaking Bad. He seems to have no compunction about that at all. As, he was going to kill Walter White, and he killed a bunch of cartel guys and various other people. But maybe it's because in this time period he's still fresh off from being a cop and has more reservations about killing, and perhaps we'll see the journey he goes on to become generally more okay with it. So in these Mike sequences, we got two Breaking Bad cameos, and unlike previous cameos, I noticed these ones right away and didn't need someone else to point them out to me. First one, I recognized instantly that the guy who was selling guns to Mike was the same guy who sold guns to Walter White twice, once in season 4 and once in season 5. And the other one I kind of recognized, but it took me a few minutes to put my finger on it, and that was the guy that Tuco was getting money from in the Mexican restaurant, and that is Crazy 8 from Breaking Bad. He was in the first season, he was in the pilot episode, and one of Tuco's associates that Jesse and Walt tried to sell meth to. and Walter White had him tied up in the basement after he tried to have him killed, and eventually Walter had to kill him, which was a very shocking moment and the first man that Walt ever kills. So that was cool to see the two of these guys again. So now, let me get to the Jimmy stuff, which honestly I thought was more interesting, and it was, the more interesting parts of the episode. I don't think we got enough of it personally. So we start off with Jimmy getting grilled by the partners at the firm he works for, and boy are they pissed. They explain it pretty plainly that they don't give a crap about the positive results that he got because their firm is a lot more than just this one case, and the commercial damages their entire image and reputation. And frankly, I can see what they're talking about because that commercial was kind of very sleazy and it did remind me a lot of the Better Call Saul commercials. That a legitimate law firm wouldn't want to be associated with it makes sense. But just like I predicted, they didn't fire him, but put him on notice where they'll be keeping a closer eye on him. So Jimmy rushes to tell Kim about it, something that he should have done in the first place, but he's too late. Hamlin and Chuck are already berating her, and for some odd reason, she doesn't tell them that Jimmy didn't tell her the commercial wasn't approved, which was a very stupid move on her part. And it kind of irritates me when shows do this, when people don't tell people things that they should. But I suppose that would make Jimmy look even worse if they knew that he had lied to her like that. But still, it's the truth. So Jimmy tries to smooth things over with her, but she's like, I told you this would happen. And he insists he'll go to Hamlin about it. He could probably explain to him that he lied to her, but she forbids him from doing it and says if he does, they're through. And I like how Jimmy's reaction was, so we're not through now? That was so cute how he assumed that he completely ruined her relationship. But he still wanted to help her out of genuine feelings for her and probably some guilt as well. But I think this proves that he's actually a pretty good guy. So, just like Kim asked him, he didn't go to Hamlin, but he went to Chuck instead, which is the first time he went to Chuck since he admitted that he didn't want him to be a lawyer. He seemed ready to, just read Chuck the riot act, but Chuck was completely out of it and wrapped in his little space blankets. Later, they mentioned it was because he spent too much time out of the house. But Jimmy takes care of him after seeing him in a state like this, gives him water, looks after him, makes sure he's okay. And does Chuck thank him for any of this? No. Instead, he turns into a total and complete asshole. So this brings me to something I said in season 1 about how when Chuck was in the hospital, the doctor was convinced that his condition was psychological. In other words, all in his head, and all Jimmy had to do was say the word and he could have Chuck committed to a mental institution. But of course he flat out refused to do so. And personally, with Chuck being such a total jerk to him, I think he's going to push him to the limit, and eventually Jimmy will just have him committed. At the moment, he's still being nice and caring for him, despite how big of an a-hole that he's being, but I'm telling you, that will not hold. So let's get into what Chuck says here. This scene where Chuck and Jimmy go at it was absolutely amazing and definitely the high point of the episode. This reminded me of the scene last season where Jimmy first finds out that it was Chuck who was holding him back all along. It was really amazing and really well pulled off. It was funny that when Jimmy confronted Chuck about what happened to Kim, Chuck plays the whole, oh gee golly, it wasn't me, it was Hamlin. And even I laughed at that, because rightfully Jimmy didn't buy it and made a joke about how Hamlin was just his puppet, because it was just like when Chuck tried to blame Hamlin for being the one who was holding Jimmy back the whole time, when really it was him. Because, you saw in the meeting after Kim left, Chuck say to Hamlin, so what are you going to do about it? So obviously he was pressuring him to punish her in some way. So Jimmy offers to quit the law altogether if they go lenient on Kim. But Chuck says that would be extortion. But Jimmy's like, yeah, it would, but wants him to admit that that's what he wants. But Chuck refuses to do it because it would appear like, he thinks that he's on some sort of moral high ground, but it's essentially what he's doing. Jimmy just wants Chuck to admit it, but of course he won't. I mean, seriously, fuck Chuck. He tries to play this whole, oh gee golly, I'm not going after Kim. But that's exactly what he's doing. He's going after Kim to get to Jimmy, and yeah, he's going after anyone who gives Jimmy a chance. He even criticized Hamlin and the firm that hired Jimmy. I mean, the whole tirade about how Jimmy's an alcoholic driving a school bus, and that line that Kim's mistake was to believe in Jimmy. Oh my God, what a fucking dick. I really hope he does get locked up in a mental institution, but that's just me. And Chuck isn't going to tell anyone that Kim didn't know that Jimmy didn't have the approval for the video because he's a prick. He doesn't care about the truth. He just wants to punish Kim in order to get to Jimmy. Anyway, amazing scene, and I cannot wait to see where they take it from here. So my rating for Gloves Off out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. A great episode. The Mike stuff was interesting, and it was cool to see him pull a scam in order to prevent him from having to kill. But the real beef of this episode was the Jimmy scenes, and seeing him hash it out with Chuck again was amazing. I wish they had a bit more of that. So that's it for my review of Gloves Off. Make sure to check back here every week as I review episodes of Better Call Saul, and check out some other videos I do on shows like Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, Vikings, and House of Cards. And make sure you subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.